Welcome back guys to another video where today we're going to be talking about tomorrow and into Saturday's possible snowstorm for the Twin Cities metropolitan area, but definitely a snowstorm for southern Minnesota and southern Wisconsin. Now here I have the possible snow totals that the National Weather thinks, and of course the National Weather Service is most of the time right. So this is kind of the ranges to expect, but usually the National Weather Service is that most reliable source. You can see here for the Twin Cities area, they have 3 to 7 inches possible, but it kind of feels like they switched it from, if you remember last snow event that just happened a couple of days ago, it feels like they just mirrored it. So the fact that instead of Duluth seeing 7 to 11 inches, now it's Rochester. So they just mirrored it over the Twin Cities area because I think these are around the snow totals that we're expected to see for last snow event. So that's quite an interesting way of viewing it, but definitely going to be aware here. You see just in the corner of your screen here, that's 9 to 18 inches possible for the Madison area, 9 to 13 inches possible on that border of Iowa and Wisconsin there. Green Bay could see 6 to 15. So literally just a line of 6 inches possible from central Wisconsin into the southern, probably fourth of Minnesota. It's definitely interesting. The biggest headline here is possibly a foot of snow possible, especially for the Iowa here. Iowa could see all of Iowa could see at least 6 inches of snow. Will it happen? We never know, but this is what we have currently for advisories and warnings and watches. So this purple here is winter storm or winter weather advisories, so definitely expect some impacts to travel. These could be definitely upgrade depending on if we see a southern or northern track. If we go back here, this was actually quite they did die down on the totals a little bit. This did shift a little south here, just like the last storm, but not in the favor of snow lovers here in the Twin Cities and along the I-94 corridor. So definitely a little less snowfall here, but definitely possibly impactful here. Now, if we look here, so these are winter storm watches in this hot pink here, and then winter storm warnings in the hot pink, and then winter storm watches here in the dark blue here. Now, these are for lake effect snow, so there has been quite a bit of snow dropping on Michigan and the UP of Michigan. So, if you live in this area, you've definitely probably seen a couple of inches of snow, maybe even a couple of feet. But these will most likely be turned into winter storm warnings. Now, you're probably wondering what's the difference between a winter weather advisory and a winter storm warning? And then a winter storm watch. Well, the difference is a winter storm watch or warning is issued for areas that are expected to see possibly a 6 inches or more of snow. There's definitely going to be 6 inches or more likely around the central Iowa location. Maybe even a foot of snow some models have been showing up because of how long the snowstorm is projected to last. And that's why we're seeing, even though we'll talk about more in the models, but even though the main impacts or the direct hit is supposed to be around this area, and the heaviest snow is supposed to be right here, areas like the Twin Cities and Eau Claire, um, are still going to see light to moderate snowfall for around 24 hours. So that's why we're expected to see, not, 12 inches, but definitely quite a bit of snow over a given period. This is the winter weather or winter storm impacts or severities. So you see here, minor impacts expected for the Twin Cities area. Now, if we go over here, they have snow amount, which is mostly for snow amount. Now, if we go to snow load here, definitely not a problem. I mean, for Iowa, maybe a little bit of Illinois or most of Illinois, snow load could become a problem, but definitely less of a problem. Like, because this is falling over a long duration, snow load isn't a huge issue here. Ice accumulation, only a really small problem in Nebraska. I don't even think that's for this event. Um, Blowing snow isn't a huge problem. So mostly it's just snow amount. And you see here, dead middle around the Des Moines area, definitely major impacts possible. Of course, this could don't, plan for this. Definitely always take winter storms with the same type of severity. and don't let this, control you. I think definitely minor impacts expected for here since we're seeing, a lot of snow for the Twin Cities area, southern Minnesota, and then Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago. Even Milwaukee could see some major impacts. So, just because we're only going to see 4 inches, or possibly 4 inches in your area, doesn't mean you shouldn't like just wipe it off the table. So yeah, definitely be aware. If we look here at the forecast or the models here, and just the track of it, you're going to see here, we're actually just going to keep it zoomed in here. Precipitation rate, let's do forecast loop here. This is completely free. The premium version, which I don't use it, um, you could buy the premium version, but it's not really needed. So you see here, snowfall will start around midnight tomorrow or around the late evening. And then watch how long, if you live in the Twin Cities, watch how long the snow settles over here. And then you're going to see those main impacts here in the Missouri. I think this will be a little farther north. The snow won't accumulate as much here because of the high temperatures and stuff, while we're over here around the almost a single digits wind chill. We're going to see here most of the impacts, but we're expected to see light to moderate snowfall for almost a 24-hour period, which is quite crazy. Now, if we go into the minimum amount. So this is what they're forecasting to see. This is um, the at least what we'll see. So right now, I think there's no doubt that Mankato and Rochester will see almost 6 inches of snow. This the minimum amount has definitely shifted a little north, but the overall like the high end amount has definitely shifted, a little south or not south, but a little less. So right now they're saying 2 inch, 90% chance of 2 inches, for the Twin Cities area, and then you can see here just, I think widespread 4 to 6 inches, definitely likely across that southern Minnesota to northern or southern Wisconsin here, with 8 inches possible, or 8 inches possibly being the bare minimum in Milwaukee, and then 7 inches possibly being the bare minimum in Madison, which is just crazy. Those are possibly definitely a lot of impacts expected there. So the high end amounts, I don't want to go to that. I mean, it's a 10% chance of happening, so it doesn't really matter that much. The onset, so this is when it's supposed to start snowing here. And you can see here around 6 p.m. Friday, and then around midnight for New Richmond, Eau Claire, Red Wing, Twin Cities area, and then 6 a.m. for Rice Lake, Ladysmith. And then this, we could see, of course, Rochester and La Crosse. They're just not included here, but I think La Crosse is kind of on that same page where 12 midnight Rochester is probably around 6 p.m. to midnight there. Um, and yeah, so if we look here overall to the extended forecast, you can see below average temperatures expected probably until Christmas here. And then we are going to see an active pattern for the next, couple weeks or week or two. I think definitely the chance of it is definitely a lot lower because we've seen it, like this is literally a back-to-back snowfall event or back-to-back winter storm. Um, if I were to give what the National Weather Service expects exactly here. Right now it's around 3 inches in the Twin Cities. This could of course change with a slight shift. We'll talk about this more I think tomorrow evening when I upload that video, but this is kind of what the National Weather Service expects, if they weren't allowed to give a range. This is quite realistic. I think the name model, if we do look at the name model, we'll first look at the GFS because that's what most of the forecasts go off of, but it's also a mix of multiple models here. And you're going to see here, 12 inches possible. I think definitely less than these by a little bit, but I think isolated foot of snow is definitely possible here. This is definitely questionable because this is kind of that transition zone. But focusing on here now, look at the name model and what it produces here. It actually goes a lot farther north to the point where I think, yeah, this is 18Z here. And just look at this. This model definitely overdoes things. You can see here almost 2 feet of snow, maybe, definitely a foot and a half it projects. I think this is definitely the high end amount. You can see here, not a tight gradient, but you can definitely see a little bit of a gradient to the north here, where it levels off. And right now it's forecasting almost 5 inches here in the Twin Cities. Of course, this model usually overdoes things, but I think it has definitely shifted a little north here, or actually has shifted a little south. So we have seen, I think overall, we have seen a shift south, and that's what we saw with the last storm just a couple of days ago. Is we saw a shift to south, which ultimately resulted in more snowfall for southern Minnesota and the Twin Cities area. Now we're seeing a slight southern shift, which is now resulting in less snow. But definitely, I think if we go back to the ranges here, oh gosh, that's not the range. There's a range. You know, I think these are definitely good predictions overall. And if we go back to the hazards expected here, you're going to see, I think this winter weather advisory is definitely going to be extended. They're kind of, they're probably discussing exactly what will happen here. I think where the winter storm warning just, what the heck? Hold on. There we go. Okay. Just a little bit of a pop up there. A winter storm warning, I think, is definitely, these won't be shifted. I think these are probably going to stay where they are. Maybe a county or two north if we do see a northern shift. But usually what I say is trends keep trending, or what I learned from my favorite Care 11 broadcaster, John Ziegler, trends keep trending. So, but I think if we've seen a southern shift, I think it's definitely going to keep shifting south. The chance of it shifting north is quite low, but it's never zero. So, yeah, to end it off here, definitely cold. I think if we actually go over here, let's talk about the temperatures because we are going to see quite a cold shift here. So day two, so this is your high temperatures for Saturday. So around 25, around the mid 20s here. For day three, which is Sunday, you're going to see going into the teens here, really cold here, almost single digits here in western Minnesota. Then if we go to day four, which is I think Monday actually. Actually, no, this is Sunday still. What the heck? Why is it not changing? There you go. Well, here's Monday, so around low 20s here. I think if we go back here, yeah. So I mean, it's gonna be cold here. Max temps once again 22. And then 22 again. So usually around, I think we're definitely gonna see a slight cool down on Monday. I think wind chills are supposed to be in the negatives. So definitely bundle up. But definitely taking to note this snow event. Areas, St. Cloud could even see 1 to 4 inches. But if we go to the bare minimum here, I mean, this is, if you want to be safe, this is what to expect at least. So yes, northern Minnesota, I don't think we'll see much. Maybe a trace, maybe parts like Brainerd, Fergus Falls. I think they might see a trace at most. But areas around southern Minnesota definitely gonna expect a little bit. And as we said, things can shift, but I think in this scenario, I think things will probably shift south if they do. A northern shift is not expected, but it's possible, but very low chance of that happening. So hopefully you guys had a happy Thanksgiving. I forgot to mention that in the beginning of the video, but hopefully you guys had a happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, be safe out there. I'll definitely upload a video sometime tomorrow. I think it'll most likely be in the evening. But yeah, stay safe and hopefully you guys had a Thanksgiving once again. So see you guys later.